I'm gonna review this movie series, season, and these. And I'm gonna talk about Wildflowers of Waterton Park and Wildflowers of Waterton Lakes National Park. And James is going to talk about the Great Controversy.
Will two former rivals unite?
Okay, sounds pretty exciting.
Oh yeah, I snoozed through it a lot.
Did you? Alright, so the second season was just as good as the first season as far as I'm concerned. And I put them in order from what I thought was the best to the worst for watching. Now, Bullet Train, there was a lot of action, but even if somebody buys all the tickets, where's the conductor, where's the guy, the ticket master, or whatever, it was kind of, honestly, more juvenile than this, and this is supposed to be kind of, anyway. I almost put Star Trek Picard Season 2 in front of Bullet Train. Even though Bullet Train had a lot of good actors, there was a lot of fun action and stuff, a lot of gory kill scenes, which weren't a plus for me, but for a lot of people it would be. But yeah, Season 2 Picard. I enjoyed this Picard season even more than the Next Generation. So, yeah, Picard. Yeah,
The original Picard.
one with Picard, yeah. And Star Trek Lower Decks Season 2, funny. So I don't know, the animation, it was kind of lame, because when I'm watching this, I'm like, okay, come on. I mean, they already have all the costumes and sets and everything. Why a cartoon? But
it
funny,
looks like
and I enjoyed
70s cartoons too.
Yeah.
When we're used to what is it, Pixar?
The Dark Red, okay. London Kill Series 3, okay. Boring, but it's the kind of boring that it's really hard to fall asleep to, and you're like, oh, why am I watching this? I can't even sleep to it. And then Dark Place, just so bad that
Put you in a dark place.
yes, it puts you in a very dark place. Wildflowers of Waterton Park.
Put you in a light place,
yes.
I think. Yeah.
So I'm looking at different plant books to try to I was trying to learn this summer and off of these plant books, and I found that to be very useful. And
it's pretty comprehensive.
yeah, well, it has a lot, and the pictures are good, the descriptions are good. What I really like about this is that it has the French names for the plants as well as the English and the Latin.
It's bilingual.
It's great.
As it should
It's
be.
great. That's as it should be in Canada. And
it should really be trilingual.
It's a good book. Really
like
good book.
The native language should be there too. So
there's another thing I really liked. That's right. It should be in there too.
It should be Blackfoot.
Yeah. But in any case, at the back of the book, there are different trails. Like say, here's Bertha Lake Trail, and there's the description of what flowers you will find in what places, kind of thing. So that's really handy. So you can look at the, if you're planning on going to whatever trail, Carthew Alderson Trail, then you can look in page 182 and that's what I'm going to find, and that's where I'm going to find it. Very, very useful. So out of all of the books that I have borrowed from the library for looking at wildflowers, and in particular Wildflowers of Waterton, this is the best one that I've seen, because it's very useful for just anybody who shows up. They could look at a picture and they, oh, yep, that's what I see. And then, I mean, if you're gonna the back of the book where there's the various trails and what. That's very excellent. Very excellent. Good job on that. Now this one was put out by Parks Canada. It's very thin, you can see. So it doesn't have very many wildflowers, but it has very lovely drawings, but they're not in color. So there's a little description and a drawing, but you really won't find that many in here because it's very few pages. What is this? 30, well, it's 29 pages of plants, and there's 4 pictures on each. But then there's a couple extra pages for like wildflower photography tips back here and whatever. But on page 30, I do think this is worth seeing. There's a bioclimatical life zones of WLNP, and on one side's the flora, on one side's the fauna. So they tell you where you can expect to see various things. But I mean, there's not very many, right? You're going to see a lot more than alpine fir, alpine larch, Engelmann spruce, white bark pine, heath, globe flower, and beargrass in this zone. You're going to find a lot more than, you know what I mean? It's not, there's not very much in here. So even though this was put out by the government, this was not, this way better than this. So yeah, yeah. So that's
this. Lots of plants.
Yeah, this isn't even all the plants of Waterton. There's so many.
So there are. I think Waterton has half of all the plant.
Well, that's what I thought too. And then I read another thing that said a little bit different. But
what did they say?
I can't remember, but it wasn't quite half. I had heard the half thing at first too, and but I don't know.
Anyway, it's a lot, and a lot more.
It has a lot.
This looks like something that they'd have in a park center,
Yeah.
Yeah, buy this or whatever. And so long as it's cheap or maybe given away.
And they may have, at one point, they may have given that away to people. And in that case, that's great, right? But
it's a start. I better put a heavier book on top of it, or else it might end up in cold ale. Thank you.
So,
having a little bit of a Chinook wind.
You can go ahead with the great controversy.
Oh, okay, the great controversy.
I'm not having any of that 0% milk fat, lactose-free Greek yogurt.
You find it's a little hard on your system?
Well, I don't know. I've been spending a lot of time awake because my chest has been tight and
it's not good.
I don't feel good. So.
Great cover. That's the only great thing about this. Maybe there are a few other things. So here we've got the U.S. Capitol up front, and up top the U.S. flag. Bottom, flip it over. I think there's a reflecting pool in front of the White House. So reflected in it is, I suspect that's St. Peter's, and it's got the papal flag.
Wow,
there.
that's really witty.
Yeah, it's very well done. Will two former rivals unite? Where was the United States ever in rivalry with the Catholic Church? Not exactly, but set up on very different principles. The grand thesis of this book, the great thesis of this book, is basically Catholicism is at odds with democracy. And anyone who doesn't realize that is a useful idiot. There are lots of people going around squawking about freedom of religion. You cannot have freedom of religion with any religion that does not believe in the separation of church and state. Let me repeat that. You cannot have freedom of religion with any religion or for any religion that doesn't believe in separation of church and state. And the Catholic Church is walking that tight line in between believing in separation of church and state and not believing in it. Traditionally, you look back at it, the popes used to control land, they used to control armies. They would, if they didn't do it themselves, they would get secular authorities to whack torture and whack people for them, put them at the stake and things like that. The Catholic Church has, though it has become ostensibly more liberal, the hierarchy that existed back then still exists, like in the time of the Inquisition, for example, still exists, and all it takes is a turn to the right on the part of the dictator, otherwise known as the Pope on top, for it to become what Bertrand Russell said about it, about the Catholic Church, a little over 100 years ago. It's not right now, but it could be borderline. The greatest threat, he said, to democracy, this is maybe 1910 or something like that, this would be worldwide, is the Catholic Church. Doesn't believe in the separation of church and state. It's not said. They'll say the Pope is elected. He's selected. Put an S in front of that. By a college of cardinals. I don't know how many traditionally there's been. I think now it's something like 70 of them. There are 1 billion Catholics in the world. They aren't electing the guy. 70 is not an election. So that's borderline. And there are religions that are way worse than Catholicism. I'm not going to go into enumeration because there's a lot of them. There are any number of them that don't believe in separation of church and state. This also goes, incidentally, for belief systems. As far as I'm concerned, belief systems are religions. And that includes, I'm going to name names here, communism, Nazism, fascism, and things of that ilk. On the right and on the left. They don't believe in separation of the party and state, or of the people who represent the belief system and state, the leaders of the belief system. And they cannot be allowed freedom of belief, or at least at least practice. They cannot be allowed. Fascist Nazis shouldn't be allowed to come into the country. They shouldn't be allowed to set up their little parties and stuff like that. They are aimed.
Well, I disagree. I think that everyone should be allowed to believe whatever they want to believe.
Well, once they're in the country, but they shouldn't be allowed in the country. They should be allowed to believe.
I see what you're saying.
And there's a difference between belief and practice. In other words, if they want to set up well, you know, we've got Nazis in North America here, and they shouldn't be allowed to set up their little militias and things like that. They're vicious militias. But that applies to commies too. Got that straight, you commies out there? So if you want to call yourselves Marxists, that's borderline stuff. What you really are nowadays, and after Mao and Marcuse and Castro is your anti-Marxist, you are, understand I'm not a Marxist, but you shouldn't be going around calling yourselves Marxists. You call yourselves communists, because you do not believe Marcuse, Mao, Castro.
Yeah, one of the things that
they didn't believe in.
YouTube can shut my video down for is politics. Well, yeah, it's politics and medical stuff they can cancel, just so you know.
All I'm saying is, you know, you can't find a person who believes in democracy more than I do. And allowing Nazis to stomp around, I'm talking about practice, is not conducive to democracy. Germany found that out in the 20s and into the 30s. Okay. People in Japan in the 20s, there were lots of them stomping around who didn't believe in, I'm not talking about all the Japanese, it's just a small number initially. They were going around assassinating politicians in the 20s and stuff like that. They cannot be allowed to do that. You cannot have a democracy when stuff like that is happening. There has to be freedom of speech, freedom of assembly. You can't have people afraid to say what they believe in when they're democratic people. So this book was written in the 1880s, weirdly enough. republished, I think in this millennium.
In when?
This millennium. It was republished in 2022. I got it from
You
the
said
Free
it was,
Library.
it
But
was
it was
written
written in 1880.
Hmm.
Republished. It's they don't talk about it, but it's Seventh-day Adventist stuff, from what I can tell. They're Christians who believe, and I think they might have a legitimate beef. They say the Catholic Church. This guy says the Catholic Church. I'm sure they say it too. The Catholic Church were the people who imposed Sunday worship on Christians. You know, one of the Ten Commandments, it goes something on the order, I think it's the Fourth Commandment. They keep on saying the Fourth Commandment is important to them. The Seventh-day Adventist, seventh day refers to the Sabbath day. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. I think that's basically what the King James Version translation is. And they maintain, I haven't done a study of it, but I did know as a kid. I was raised on fundamentalist Christianity. We understand, in case you're not the biggest problem, I'm an agnostic, okay? And have been, basically, as far as I can remember, I was skeptical. That would be like from when I was 5 years old. But, I was always asking myself, where does it actually say in the Bible? I knew about the Sabbath day and all that sort of stuff. Where does it say to worship on Sunday? There might have been something about meeting on the first day of the week. You know, if God is such a great and incredible dude, he's not going, like the church is supposed to be his bride or something like that. But let's say it's like his partner, and it's like they're just like like having they're dating, shall we say? I don't know. If a person really likes a prospective bride or something like that, and the bride changes the date of the date of a date, I don't think he's going to get all I'm sending you to hell because you're worshiping me on the wrong day. Like then what's the first day of the week? Sunday in France it's Monday. It's Monday. Huh? How much, right? I don't think it is worth maybe for me. The first half or so of the book is actually a reasonably good outline of the history of Christianity. And it's from a Protestant point of view, but hey, there's no other point of view when it comes to the Catholic Church. There's just no other point of view. The Protestants were closer to the original Christianity, which was peaceful and peace, love, and flowers, basically. And then it was taken over by Constantine, the guy who taught me Islam, was saying every religion needs a Constantine. And I'm sitting in the back of the class just resisting the temptation to, I didn't put my hand to say it, the death of Christianity was almost Constantine. Luckily enough, a guy called Martin Luther came along. There were some predecessors like Johann Hus, H-U-S, here it's called H-U-S-S, it's called H-U-S-S, Czech or Bohemian, and guy, he paid with his life. And Wycliffe, first translation of the Bible, vernacular, and I think it was that got any traction. I think he's English, Wycliffe. And they're heroes for democracy. And I'm an agnostic, and they are heroes, right? That they are real martyrs too. They weren't interested, I guess, terribly much in democracy, but then Martin Luther, he killed some people in his life, or had some people killed, really, by the secular authorities. But he was an amazingly courageous individual, and again, a hero of, he should be a hero for every Democrat. Jean Calvin, he had people killed. But again, a real hero. John Knox, I don't know if he had people killed in Scotland. Ulrich Zwingli, these guys were like a 400 years ago, 500 years ago, I should say. Martin Luther, 1517 was when he started the Protestant Reformation and stuff like that. So this guy goes through a bunch of this, and then he gets to a guy called William Miller. And William Miller studied the Bible, studied for 4 years, 1840 to 1844, and he said the world is ending. The last days are coming. No, it's not the world ending. They seem to be millennials. They believe that Jesus will come down. They believe in 2 advents, from what I can tell. In other words, Jesus is going to come down and set up a world kingdom for 1,000 years. That's where they get millennial stuff. There are people in the religion that I was raised that were millennials. And there seems to be stuff in the Bible that maybe is support for that. And then the last judgment will be after those 1,000 years, and all the dead will be raised and all that sort of stuff. So the 1,000 years rule will be with the just good Christians and stuff like that. So it was supposed to be 1844. Jesus will come. Well, still waiting. It's almost 180 years. So this guy, the guy who wrote this, his name, it's not well advertised. White, I think's the name. He's writing in the 1880s, and he's saying, like something happened in the world, and it was significant. I can't. 1844. What the heck? Like there was there a famine that started in the world or something like that, and that led to the revolutions. All of them went kaput in 1848. That's maybe when the Irish potato famine happened, all that sort of stuff. But it's just kind of like an ad hoc. It didn't work out. And it's amazing that the movement survived that. You think, okay, and apparently it moved into a variety of different Protestant churches. They were seen as being, okay, this is, we're Protestants and the world's going to end. You come and preach. I think they were having William Miller come into various, maybe the Baptists or stuff like that. Hey, you come in to preach. The world's going to end. I don't know how many people went up to the rooftops, and I think it's a particular day too. So they went up to the rooftops, and anyway, people do these kind of things. I don't know if the Seventh-day Adventists are the silliest for doing that, and they're probably other people. Apparently, some of the Seventh-day Adventists, they just got to say, okay, it's not. Oh, that one didn't. Oh, okay, another one. And so on and so forth. Anyway, a fairly good outline of things. The history leading up to the Seventh-day Adventists, and I gotta, it's stuff I was raised on. The second half of it is just like it's boilerplate. So the worst boilerplate that I've ever run across is communist stuff. You read a communist, this is communist Russia, Soviet Russia, I'm trying to read the stuff Russian, like Urartian verbs and verbal structure. And I'm reading it, and you always miss the first chapter, although I don't, you should. It's just communist cant. It's our boilerplate. Here's a hammer and a sickle, hammering this stuff into your head about Marx. What does that have to do with Urartu? Urartu basically bit the bullet around, maybe 713 BC or something like that, when Sargon II, the Assyrian king, made a big stomping thing through campaign through the northwestern part of Iran, around Urmia, I think we said. Oromia, I think is how the Persians say, or how it's said in Farsi, how the Iranians say it now. But then he stomped into Armenia, and then he circled back down. It was a great big campaign, and he basically put an end to this little Urartian empire. I think and incidentally, Urartu is the way the Assyrians said Ararat. A lot of people were reading an account in the Bible, in the Old Testament, about Sennacherib, the Assyrian king, being assassinated by 2 of his sons, and they weren't strong enough to consolidate hold as his successors. And so the Bible says they went running off to Ararat. Now that's not the official translation, but they went running off to Ararat. People were going for hundreds and they go running off to Mount Ararat, where Noah's Ark was supposed to rest after the flood? Why would they run up? No, Ararat, the mountain, was named after Urartu. And believe me, that's not necessarily the way I'm trying to pick up Urartian, but there's not much written in it, so I don't know. I don't think they even called themselves that. It was something like the so they figured Lake Van was named after what they called themselves. Anyway, it's up there in Armenia, or I think Ararat is in Turkey, but it shouldn't be part of Turkey. But that's another story. You know, the Kurds are now, or the Turks are now attacking the Kurds. They're taking, they've been pussyfooting around with the Russians, the Turks have, and I think they're saying, hey, this is a great chance for us to do war crimes on the Kurds again and again. You Turks, you flunkies, are not native to Turkey. The Greeks even weren't, at least aside from the western part. Indo-Europeans, though, were. And you have kept on killing them, ethnically cleansing them, genociding them, people like the Armenians. They're Indo-Europeans. You have no right to be there. Kurds are Indo-Europeans, and they are the Guti. I'm pretty darn sure that the Assyrians recorded, and hey, the Sumerians recorded even before them. They go back there to more than 4,000 years, and you Turks have been there for 1,000, and you're whacking them. Shame on you, you useless pukes.